Welcome back, everybody. Thank you for being here. Probably no one's here right now because I didn't really announce it until just a few minutes ago, but we are back with our wonderful series again with Kathy Enking, nutritional therapy practitioner and bachelor's of nursing. Hi, Kathy.
Hi, Katania.
Well, we had to jump. I've had a rough weekend. I had to jump on today. I just had to because I just have to get out of my little rut. My daughter has the flu. And it started about Friday, and she went downhill really fast. We went to urgent care on Saturday, and oh my gosh. But the worst part, I think, is, well, there's two bad parts. She also has an ear infection, and that's causing a lot of pain, and that's probably the biggest complaint she's been having. And but the other part is really, really high fever. That's very scary. I brag all the time that my daughter never gets sick. My son gets sick a lot more often. It's something that'll go through the house. My daughter never gets it. And I guess I didn't knock wood because she's really, really sick. But this is really the first time she's ever been sick. I didn't even know what to do with her. I didn't know what to do with an ear infection. I've never dealt with ear infections. I've never dealt with high fever. I don't even have a good thermometer in my house because I haven't taken a temperature in probably 8 years. So Wow, the perspective that it's given me this weekend, going to urgent care and her not getting better very fast. I mean, it's only been Friday, it's Monday, so it's only been 3 days, but a switch seemed to go on last night. She was like being all spazzy and like her fever came down and I was like, wow, you're back. She was calling me my nicknames and talking like out loud. I thought, oh gosh, we're out of the woods. And then she slept like 11 hours and woke up this morning with a fever of 103. And she's still complaining. Yeah, still complaining about the ear. So that's where we're at. And I also wanted to, I'm doing all my favorite herbs and immune boosters and just cranking the vitamin D and the vitamin C and the vitamin A and the what else? All my Chinese herbs and the water. But the one thing I go to every time during illnesses, I tend to sort of not poo-poo them, but just not give them as much credit when we're not sick. But essential oils, oh my gosh, when we're sick, including myself, they're so great with symptom relief. And I know they also have a lot of antiviral and antimicrobial and all that, but so that's fabulous. But actually for symptom relief, just breaking up your cough, getting opening sinuses, relieving pain, neck pain, ear pain. So I have been cranking the essential oils all over her, around her ear, in a diffuser, breathe, and eucalyptus and peppermint and oregano. And so I can't say enough about essential oils in a time of illness. And I actually had to go to a friend's house to pick some up because I don't stock enough, because I don't ever think about it when we're healthy. So kind of my advice to everyone, if you have something you like to use when your kids are sick, have it on hand, or you're just going to be really frustrated with yourself if you don't have it when they actually get sick. So I actually wrote a post on essential oils. I don't know when it was, but it's on my website. And it was the same thing. It's like, I don't realize the benefit of essential oils until I feel awful. So yeah, that's the one thing I wanted to kind of mention. Any tips that you have when you get really sick? What do you like to use?
Oh, kind of like you, I don't really get sick very often. And my kids are grown now, but I had to deal with that a lot too. And I wished I had essential oils back then. This was like, in the 90s, I was raising my family. And so, I wasn't tapped in or turned on to essential oils at that time. And, so gosh, vitamin C, vitamin D, definitely were the big ones at that time. I liked to have my kids, do some kind of fermented foods. It seemed like yogurt was really a good thing back when my kids were little. They, when they ate yogurt, it seemed like they never got sick. So that was kind of an interesting thing that I noticed. But, nowadays I try to make sure that they're all on a really good probiotic. For sure, because you want to keep that healthy gut flora. And, that's essentially your immune system. And so keeping that gut really healthy. Another thing that I try to do too is have them not be eating sugar. Because as we talked about, in our earlier podcasts about how sugar can shut down the immune system for up to 8 hours. And so that's huge. And I know sometimes we use honey medicinally, because that's great. You know, it's got lots of B vitamins and bee pollen and different things in it, like a good purified raw or a good raw honey, you know, can be really helpful, soothing the throat and things like that. Another thing that I really liked to use too was the elderberry syrup. That was another one that really, you know, that's a nice thing to help boost the immune system. It's soothing to the throat. And you can get that in just about anywhere these days now. But I was just trying to think, about 2 years ago, I was doing some nannying for a family with young children. And, you know, that year I ended up getting sick more than I would have. And I'm sure it was, you know, new strains of things that I hadn't been exposed to. And so I kind of just looked at it as a way of building my immunity back up again, because when I did get sick, I wasn't really sick. I didn't seem to get as sick as the kids did, but you know, still it was challenging my immune system. So, you know, vitamin D for sure. You can boost your vitamin D during that time. You know, getting on a good probiotic, just trying to eat really clean, drinking bone broths, and you know, depending on if you've got that fever, sometimes it's hard to get food in. But, you know, soups, stews, bone broths, things like that. Bone broth can be really, really beneficial. Juices, fresh pressed juices probably would be great too. You know, I'm trying to think what some of my go-tos were back then, and I almost can't even really think about it anymore. You know, if I lucky. I mean, if I get sick, I definitely go to the essential oils too. And there are some that you can infuse into the air. You can rub onto the bottoms of your feet. You know, I use peppermint oil quite often for headaches, things like that. Breathing it in, rubbing it in your hands, and just inhaling the fumes, you know, helps relieve that congestion. Those are all things you can do. You know, where your daughter's got that added thing, which is the ear infection, you know, you got to take care of that. So, you know, but I don't know about you, but I don't necessarily recommend the flu shot, that people be getting the flu shot every single year, because, you know, that's a whole nother territory that we can delve into. But I really believe in boosting the body's own natural immune system. And, you know, rather than relying on something that's pharmaceutical to, you know, supposedly keep you healthy throughout the flu season.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, obviously we don't get the flu shot. We've never ever, like I said, been sick, and none of us have ever had the flu. And I certainly doesn't make me wish I got her the flu shot. I believe that it possibly even brings down the immune system. I know plenty of people who got it, that got the shot, that got very, very sick with it anyway, and maybe more sick than they would have. So anyway, that is a talk for another day. So let's switch gears a little bit. You know, we can bounce back if we think of anything else. You know, just some of the tricks. Oregano on the feet. Oregano is very antiviral. Peppermint brings down a fever, so it's kind of hot and very burny. So you want to be careful, but you could put that on the feet. And then diffusing, you know, all of these is also really important. Melaleuca is also, tea tree oil is also very antiviral. And of course, peppermint and eucalyptus are really great for opening up the breathing. I use doTERRA oils, and they have a formula called Breathe that when we have coughs, or my daughter tends to get a little bit tight chested, that is just amazing to rub on the chest. So,
well, and the On Guard is another one too that I diffuse throughout the house. I diffuse it in my office at work this time of year, because you know, people are coming in, they're sick, they've got coughs. You can rub that on the bottoms of the feet, diffuse that in the air. It's really wonderful.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing for the rest of us to prevent it, getting it right now, is the On Guard on the feet, and also on the back of the neck. And kind of the spine. That upper spine area is in Chinese medicine, is very related to kind of where the kind of pathogens, we call it wind invasion, gets kind of supposedly kind of comes in at the back of the neck. And, you know, if you think about it, so many times when we get sick, you get a stiff neck. So kind of, I like when Chinese medicine and, you know, Western medicine sort of make sense together. But let's change subject a little. I want, you know, stay sort of on immunity, but I've been very fascinated about a product you talk a lot about. Let's talk about the NRF2 activation and oxidative stress, and, you know, maybe even weave in how that helps support immunity.
Yeah, absolutely. what we're learning through nutrition and using food as medicine, that we can use a lot of these nutrition and herbs to actually activate our cellular pathways, to activate our immune system, to activate our bodies to actually produce our own internal antioxidant enzyme system. And what we hear a lot about is, especially when you're sick, taking a lot of antioxidants, taking vitamin C's and vitamin E and also, boosting the immune system with these things. Mm-hmm. And it's great to take those in, to get that type of nutrition from your food, from, supplements when you can, ones that are a pharmaceutical grade, good quality. But what we're kind of moving into a new area of supplementation now, and it's called activation, where you're actually activating your cells and activating your genes to behave somewhat like they were when you were much, much younger. And what NRF2 does is it turns on your survival genes in your body. So we're talking about immunity. We're talking about natural detoxification pathways. We're talking about cellular protection, and then also restoring dysfunctional cells too. So as we age, we kind of, what I learned in nutrition was that we got to look at what's the burden that the body is carrying. So we talk about this toxic burden. We talk about, we get bombarded every day from, the things in our food, pesticides, we know about glyphosate. We talked about GMOs, things in our water, if we're drinking tap water or just any water, we really don't know what's in our water. And that's something we can't necessarily taste. And, we can try to measure it as much as possible. And then even in the air that we breathe. So we're taking in a certain amount of toxic substances, not to mention the stress that we go through on a day-to-day basis. And so all of those things are considered your toxic load or your toxic burden. And what we want to do, what we're always looking at in nutritional therapy is how can we lessen that burden? How can we lessen that toxic load on the body? And when you lessen that toxic load, it gives your immune system the ability to actually work. So it's not constantly fighting off stress all the time. So with NRF2 activation, there's actually a pathway in the cells. And this was actually fairly recently discovered. What I believe is that the Japanese discovered the pathway in the late 90s. And there was a doctor who was this discoverer of superoxide dismutase. And I don't want to get too scientific here, but we all contain within us certain enzyme pathways. And his discovery of that led him to lots of research where he was trying to figure out how to naturally turn this on in the body. And along with that research became the discovery of 5 herbs that work together in a synergy that turn on this pathway. Now, this was a product that was developed, turns on NRF2, and it reduces oxidative stress by an average of 40% in 30 days in all mammals. But there are also natural ways that you can activate the NRF2 pathway. And you can do that by taking in certain antioxidant supplements. You can do it through exercise. That's a big way to turn on NRF2. In fact, one of the foods with the most NRF2 activation in it are actually broccoli sprouts. And blueberries is another one too that turns on NRF2, even a little bit of dark chocolate. So, we want to look at that antioxidant network, and we want to make sure that we're including those things in our diet. But we also want to make sure that we're including exercise, because that is going to activate that NRF2 pathway. Now, that's the thing, is that so many of us, even doing those things, like you always hear about the person who, like, oh my God, he was, amazing. He was an athlete and he ate the best food of anybody I know. And, the next thing you know, they die of a heart attack or they've got cancer or something like that. And that's because we can't see what's happening to our bodies on the inside. And we can't always know what we're eating, breathing in, drinking, all of those things. So we do have to kind of try to protect ourselves. And one of the best ways that I know is actually with NRF2 activation right now. And so we're turning on our body's own enzyme system. We're turning on catalase, superoxide dismutase, and glutathione. And glutathione is like the mother antioxidant. People are actually trying to take glutathione supplements these days, and you can have a bit of an effect with those, but it's a much better strategy to try to turn on your internal antioxidant enzyme system, turn on the pathway that makes glutathione, and that way, and by activating this, actually the product that I take upregulates glutathione by 300%. Wow. And that's huge. So we're seeing a lot of people with chronic conditions is, not just the neurological conditions, although those seem to be rampant these days, the Parkinson's, MS, Alzheimer's, even autism. And what the doctors will say, the more integrative, the ones that are working in the natural world, will say you want to be able to upregulate glutathione, that is like the major pathway. And so we've got something that turns on glutathione by 300%. And it's been proven in clinical studies. So that's the other beautiful thing, is that you want to look to products that have research. There are a lot of products out there, people buy them every day at Costco, at Walmart, at pharmacies. And if you try to look up that product and find peer-reviewed research on it, it's very, very unlikely that you will. And so the NRF2 activator that I'm talking about actually has 23 peer-reviewed studies. And so what peer review means basically is that, well, they're published in the National Institutes of Health's website. That's where all of the doctors go to do their research. It's where all researchers go, and our tax dollars pay for it. So anybody can go to pubmed.gov and they can do research on any product. You can find research on green tea, milk thistle, turmeric. You can find studies on ashwagandha. And but what you rarely will see is a branded supplement with research. And so that's what we have. We have a branded supplement that actually has 23 scientific studies that actually prove that it does what it says it does. And so that's important. And we also know that everybody's different. So one product isn't going to necessarily work for everybody. People have their go-to products. But what this has been proven to do is that in every single mammal, that's including animals too, reduces oxidative stress an average of 40% in 30 days. And so that's huge. And with continued use up to 70%. So that's when I saw this, and being in the nutrition world and knowing that our level of health is dependent quite a bit on that oxidative stress really is the root. If you can lower that stress in your body, it allows the rest of your body to be able to bring itself back into balance. Because you notice that when you're stressed, you get sick, right? So that's typically what happens. We have something happen in our lives, a stressful event. And even, a lot of people I know that have MS say that they think it was brought on by a trauma or a stressful type of event. And we hear that all the time, you and I, in our work that we do, that, somebody goes through a major life trauma and, 2 years later, they've got cancer, or they've got MS, or they've got, Parkinson's or something. And we see that happening all the time. Emotional stress is just as problematic as environmental stresses. So we've got to keep that. We've got to keep our mindset, positive mindset, and keeping ourselves. That's why I guess that's why I'm such a Nazi. I hate to say it, but I'm such a Nazi about reading food labels and trying to know as much as possible where my food comes from, because you might say, well, it's got a few things in it. That's okay. Well, that adds up. You start like making exceptions for, your foods, and pretty soon you've got this, level of toxic burden. I work with somebody who recently was in the emergency room with a allergic reaction. She doesn't know to what, but, I'm working with her, and her symptom burden is huge. It's very, very high. So what we've got to do is we got to get that symptom burden level down, that toxic burden level down. And then it gives the body a little bit of a break and some room to start healing. And then we can work on the other things that are, that we can find out those foods that are being the problem for them, or things in the environment, the allergies and things like that. So
yeah, it snowballs, and then you end up not being able to figure out what it is. So, and when you can, where we can, which is why you and I are Nazis, where we have control, we like to, practice that control, because there's too many places we don't have control. We don't have control. We have a certain amount of control in our water if you use a filter, but we have very little control over our air. We have very little control over the precipitation that comes out of the air. We have very little control over what's going into our water systems. And, to some extent, depending on how we eat and where we eat and how we, if we go out, whatever we're doing, we don't have 100% control over the food that goes into our mouths and our children's mouths. So when you can, in your home, when you're grocery shopping, let's, keep it organic. And that's really the organic and GMO free. That's really the only way we can have control, other than, filtering things. So yeah, the whole, glutathione is really a fascinating, topic. And I've done quite a bit of research on it, trying to find, brands and, forms of it that are active and that actually work. And there is controversy. Some people say you cannot take it orally. Some people say you can only do it IV. There's some talk now with liposomal glutathione and acetyl L, I think it's acetyl L reduced. I don't know. There's all these different fancy forms of it. Yeah. One I use, I think, is acetyl L glutathione. But anyway, or S-acetyl, something like that. But yeah, then there's still the controversy of, is it actually still working no matter what you're taking? And there's even controversy, if you're taking glutathione, it can downregulate your body's own system of making glutathione. So we always have to be a little bit careful of that. So, it sounds like that, again, the product you're talking about, the NRF2 activation, is sort of the way that a lot of functional medicine is going, where we are really backing up downstream or upstream and trying to turn on these pathways so that the body makes its own whatever it is we're talking about, instead of just supplementing that end result.
And one thing we do, just as a little segue or a little caveat, is sometimes we hear doctors who will say, well, you can't just turn on the NRF2 pathway and keep it on. And that's true. And the way that this works is in a pulsatile fashion, so that you're not turning on NRF2 and keeping it turned on. Mm-hmm. You're actually using it more as a pulsatile. So I think in terms of, turning on glutathione and keeping it turned on, it works in that pulsatile fashion. And so it's much more readily used by the body that way. It doesn't activate it, and you don't run into the problem of, upregulating or downregulating those pathways detrimentally. So
when you say pulsatile, do you take it in an off and on fashion, or you're just saying the body manages it in a pulsatile fashion?
Yeah, the product itself releases in a pulsatile fashion. Okay. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Yeah. I wanted to mention a product I've found recently and heard a lot about recently. I just wanted to show it. I'm in the early stages of research, but it's super exciting, and it's totally along the lines of turning on, basically not supplementing the thing we're talking about, but creating an environment for that thing we're talking about to proliferate. So this one is it's not a probiotic, but it creates an environment in the gut of sealing the gut lining and providing a communication network for the good gut bugs the good microbiome in our gut to communicate better, so that they can proliferate. Mm-hmm. It's really cool. It was developed by, maybe you've heard of Dr. Zach Bush.
Yeah, I knew what you were going to talk about.
Yeah. It's the funniest thing how things, come into your life. I had a patient actually talk to me about this. I'd never heard of it. She said it changed her life. And I didn't really think that much of it because people talk to me all the time about things that change their lives, right? So I'm driving home from work that day and I listened to one of my podcasts. I'm always listening to podcasts and learning from them. And sorry, I just got an interesting message up there. And it's Dr. Zach Bush talking about this product. And I'm like, that has to be the product my patient talked about. And she described even the decoration on the bottle because there's so many different, products probably with the same name. So I want to show it. Yeah. Let's see. Yeah. So she described kind of that ribbony thing along the edge. And I said, well, that's got to be it because she didn't really know what it was. And I assumed when she told me by what she was telling me that it was a probiotic. And basically, like I said, it is essentially the effect of a probiotic. But it's like basically like dirt water. I mean, it's
I know. It's fascinating.
Yeah, I like I said, I'm in the middle of researching it, but it's like he's extracted certain molecules out of ancient dirt that is not, glyphosate ridden, not pesticide, polluted, not, ancient dirt that's still pure, and extracted something out of that. And it's just like a liquid and it helps. So it literally seals the gut lining back up, which is what we talk about so much about gut integrity. We talk about glutamine and aloe vera and the different things that help seal, the gaps, the gap junctions in the intestinal lining. But this is supposed to seal that and also prevent from glyphosate affecting those cells. So it's really protective. Right. Yeah, so it's fascinating. So, I'm not associated with them in any way, shape, or form. When I come across a product like this that I'm so fascinated about and that, I may start carrying in my clinic, I like to kind of share my new findings. And, again, it's back to the basics. We're not even supplementing a probiotic. We're not even, sometimes even with probiotics, we have issues because we all have completely different fingerprint of probiotics. Or of what's living in each of our guts, right? So there are people that don't do well with, say, Lactobacillus acidophilus. They don't do well with, there's hundreds of them. But depending on what you have as your fingerprint of your gut microbiome, we really all need a very individualized probiotic, ideally. And which is one reason why, you may want to alternate probiotics and just to get a bunch of different variety. But going to, again, the root of not supplementing an actual probiotic, but creating an environment where whichever probiotics your body needs can thrive, that's what this product does. So, and, it sounds like that's what, a product like yours with the NRF2 activation and getting really to the bottom of giving your body what it needs to then do all of its downstream, positive detoxification and immune and cellular support. So I was just going to say, I had actually thought about that would be the products that I have and the Restore in unison, I think would work incredibly. Because I haven't done a ton of the deep research on Restore, but I remember I was on one of the first webinars when they launched that a couple of years ago. I was living in Phoenix and I was part of the Jeffrey Smith's network, the GMO Free Arizona. And so I was listening to that podcast where Zach Bush introduced this product Restore. And I have not run across anybody who has used it that has gotten the results, but I'm sure that there have been many. I just haven't known anybody that has used it. But yeah, definitely worth looking into because leaky gut is, really 97% of us, I think, have it. And sometimes even with all of the work that you might do from a nutritional standpoint, especially if you have a toxin that's coming into your environment that you're unaware of, and, you're trying to eat as clean as possible. You're trying to do everything that you can do, but there's this unknown substance, that's wreaking havoc on your system. And that is actually, continuing that leaky gut cycle. And products like these can come in and really boost your body and help you restore that health that you're looking for, that vitality and vigor that we all want to have. Yeah. So. Good. Well, I'm going to put your email back up here in case anyone wants to ask you questions about your particular product.
Okay, great.
And I assume you're still working on a Facebook page or something, right? A more of a business Facebook page.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
I got to get together with you on that.
I know we should.
It's not that hard.
I know. I just need like to set the time aside to do it.
I know. But anyway, people can get hold of you there at betterworldnutrition@gmail, right? Do I have that right?
Yeah, and they can definitely private message me off of my Facebook page, Kathy Mitchell Enking. They can find me through Kathy Enking too.
Okay.
So I'm absolutely open to that.
Great. Well, thanks for being here. I'm going to go back to babying my daughter and getting all those fluids and nutrients in there, and just keeping that immune system up and the probiotics, and it's the best we can do. And it doesn't matter how great we do. I mean, we're going to get sick. We're not going to never get sick. It's part of nature as God intended, and it's educating the immune system. So it is what it is. And keep the fluids and the vitamin C flowing. And thanks for being here, Kathy.
Yeah, thanks, Katania. I hope your daughter feels better soon.
Thanks so much. I will talk to you soon, and ask questions. We'll keep checking back in here, and I'm going to post all sorts of links below. Kathy, feel free to post anything else you want for easier linking in the comments.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks,
bye.
All right. Bye-bye.